How's it going, guys? Today we're going to talk about hand tools, and specifically our hand tool 1 demonstration. So you should have a study guide to go along with this video. You're going to fill out the name and the purpose or use for each of these tools. On some tools there could be more than one purpose or use, so you want to fill out all of the purposes or uses for each of them. Okay? Don't forget there is one on the back, so don't forget about that one to turn it over. Let's get started. So this is our tool cabinet. So this is where you're going to find all the hand tools you need to work in the shop. Let's talk about the ones on the study guide. Let's first talk about this one here. This is called a marking gauge. A marking gauge is used to mark a line or scribe a line on a board. You can also use this in metalworking, but primarily this one here is used in woodworking. So the way it works is we have this knob, we can unscrew the knob and slide this up and down on this block. We also have this point. So this point comes down here, and this is what's going to actually scribe or scratch a line in the surface of your board. So you want to take a tape measure or a ruler and measure the distance from that point to this block. When you get the distance you want, you tighten this wing nut or T-screw down, and you can slide that along the edge of a board, and it's going to put a line on that board at that exact measurement. So if I needed to mark multiple boards, I can use the marking gauge, set the measurement I want, mark it here, and I can mark this as many times as I need to on as many boards as I want to, and it will give me those layout lines. Okay? So that is our marking gauge. The next tool we have is similar in nature, and that's going to be our scratch awl. Okay, this right here is called a scratch awl. That's A-W-L for awl. It kind of looks like a screwdriver with the handle, but if you look closely at the tip, it's just a pointed tip. All right, there's no flathead or Phillips tip on there. It's just meant to be a sharp point. Now what we use this for is for marking starter holes in wood. So I would measure off of 2 parts of a board. So if I wanted to put some screws in here, I would measure off the edge and the end of the board and mark that with a pencil. And then I take my scratch awl and I can just push it on there, just bump it with the palm of my hand. And that's going to leave a small indentation right there. And that's going to give me a starting point for my drill bit to follow. Now I can also use this like a marking gauge on metalworking. I had a piece of sheet metal that I wanted to mark, or even a piece of angle iron or something like that. I can use this kind of as a pencil and mark it or scratch the surface. This is going to be permanent on your surface, and it's going to show up a little bit better than a pencil would. The benefit of this over like a permanent marker or soapstone is that it's going to be a really fine, thin, accurate line. So it's going to give you a precise marking. We don't want a really bold marking on our board or on our sheet metal, so this will give us an accurate mark. Okay, so we can use this to start a hole in wood or use it to scribe for metalworking. Okay, the next one we see here is called a putty knife. We have 2. Get this one out here. Okay, so here's your putty knife. It's not meant to cut anything. Even though it's called a knife, it's called a knife because it has this blade-like piece on it here. This is used for spreading wood putty, or we could actually use it in like a drywall setting where we might just have to patch a small hole. We're not going to do any of that in this class, but if we had a hole in a board or an imperfection in a board that we wanted to fill with putty, we could take this and kind of smear that putty on there, spread that right where we needed it to be. Okay. We can also use it as a scraper. If we had some loose paint, or if we had something we needed to scrape off the surface, you can use that flexible blade like this and use that in a scraping motion and clean off anything that you need to clean off. Maybe you had some glue on there you wanted to get off, you could use it for that. All right, next on the list we have some pliers, and these aren't just regular pliers because we're going to refer to several different types of pliers as we go through all of our hand tools. These specifically are groove joint pliers. So that's the way you want to name this, is groove joint pliers. Now it gets its name from these grooves that are in here. Okay, so this is the smallest setting, and I can adjust these so that it slides into a different groove to make a larger gripping tool there. So if I had something larger I needed to hold on to, I could use it for that. Now, what a lot of people think these are used for is for turning nuts and bolts, and that is incorrect. If you use this to turn nuts and bolts, what you're going to end up doing is stripping out the head of those nuts or bolts. So we can kind of see that these jaws are not parallel, and that's why they don't work well for nuts and bolts. These kind of work like a pipe wrench does, where you have one jaw that's offset from the other 90-degree jaw. Okay, so we can use this really as a gripping tool, just as a generic purpose is a gripping tool. Something that you need to hold on to really tight that you can't do with your hands. Also could be used as a pipe wrench or like a pipe wrench to maybe hold or tighten smaller light plastic pipe for plumbing and things like that. Under your sink it's perfect, gives you a lot of leverage, a lot of gripping without the bulkiness of a pipe wrench. All right, the next one is sometimes mislabeled, okay? This gets associated with a brand name Crescent and called a crescent wrench, but Crescent is a brand name, not the name of the tool. The brand Crescent makes a lot of other tools. They make groove joint pliers, they make screwdrivers, they make a lot of different things. So this is called an adjustable wrench, and this is used for turning nuts and bolts. The benefit of this over having a whole set of wrenches is you have a whole set of wrenches. So I can adjust this to make it smaller or larger depending on the size of the nut or the bolt. Okay? The downside of this is that it's very bulky. It's thick, it's large, so if I had a tight space to get into, this wouldn't be the tool of choice. But this is very handy when you're not even sure what size the nut or the bolt is. You can grab one of these adjustable wrenches and you have the right size every time. Okay? So that is the adjustable wrench. All right, let's flip over to the back side, and we have our last one on here. Last one is not a box cutter. It does cut boxes and cut cardboard. This is called a utility knife. So it kind of gets its name just like a utility player in baseball would get their name. A utility player in baseball plays a lot of different positions. A utility knife is used to cut a lot of different things. So we're going to say for the purposes that it's going to be used to cut thin materials. So that includes cardboard boxes, that includes tape, that includes maybe even some very thin backing if we had some thin backing. We can use it for drywall. We can use it for a lot of different things. So using it to cut thin material is what we're going to go with, and that is our utility knife. Okay guys, so make sure you fill out your study guide, name and purpose for each of these tools. Don't forget the back side. Now you're going to take your hand tool #1 quiz on Google Classroom. Make sure you watch this video first. Make sure you fill out your study guide and review the study guide a couple of times before you take the quiz. If you have any questions, email me. Good luck.